Later, at the end of the sessions, we're just going to ask Ms. Portia from the South African Youth Council to come speak to us. She's a busy lady, so she needs to move from here and go somewhere else because it's Youth Month. Busy girl. So Portia, Ms. Portia Nyambose obtained a diploma in cost management accounting in the Durban University of Technology, a national certificate in local government finance. She's the founder of Zamalovu, Ms. Portia, an NPO that works with young people around the INK area. She led at the South African Students' Congress regionally and provincially. She's currently serving as the district chairperson of the Young Communist League, currently forms part of the ANC Youth League Provincial Congress Preparatory Commission, currently serving in the South African Youth Council Provincial Executive Committee. I have the honor to introduce you today, just as I have these honorable guests, Ms. Portia Stembile, guys. Thank you. The parrot deserves Sanbonan. Greetings everyone. Guys, everyone keeps looking at him saying so I just wanna there's a song that in my youthful days we used to sing, and I'm just going to sing it. I hope you guys know it. It's Nkosi, Nkosi sigelela, oh sigelela i-Afrika, maluphakanyiswa, Greetings, Cater, yes, that's it. To our Cater there, Kamalamu Portia, Resilience Wanyambose. Also, people know me as Portia Tutor on social media platforms. Let me just explain that because people always ask me why tutor. I used to be a tutor in DUT and so I lead the Provincial Executive Committee of the South African Youth Council in KwaZulu-Natal. Greetings to my Deputy Secretary of our province, Comrade Welani. Guys, in your presence, I must not speak, but gender. We are child of a greater God. So I greet you, Welani, and I greet everyone in the house. I greet Amakhansela, I greet leadership of youth formations in our province. I'm not going to name them because I represent the South African Youth Council. The South African Youth Council is a formation of young people
it has affiliates of all structures, whether political, religious, traditional, all sectors that seek to mobilize the youth in our country. So we have the ACE Youth League, we have the EFF, we have DA, we have NASMO, we have SADESMO, we have NATESA, which is the Nazareth Youth Formation, Yama Nazareth Hashembe, we have TASCO, which is the formation of young people, Base Postol, we have MEDSO, we have this one of traditional healers, but we are a youth formation that ihlanganisa wona wonke ama organization as a KZN. We also exist nationally as a KZN are represent umphakathi. So we are non-political, but you have to be political conscious because we come from organizations as Kulsai. We were given a topic by our colleague here, Umbali, of how do we distinguish, or how do we separate, or how do we come about facing our challenges, and what are the possibilities of overcoming them in this era. I sat down, I went to Google, I went to the books. When I read a book, I write a review. So in all my reviews, I just sat and thought that, no man, we must just agree that we are in a crisis, because there's no answer. I saw the panelists are just as people who know each other here, who have no solutions to anything that we spoke about here. We spoke about organizing each other, fighting for our rights, but we're not going to get anything that we spoke about here, because the people who are supposed to be in this room are not here. The deciders of everything, or every resolution we have in this conference, are Beko. I think I need to challenge DDP that maybe next year we call upon the decision makers of our country. We speak about unfair treatment. We spoke about, Umlaut even made an example that even that fixed weight, but how are we going to solve that sitting here? Because Guaitina seated here, we have our own scenarios that we can say in our specific communities, but as a solution. Just to open that, colleague Mbali, next conference of DDP, sibe nabantu aba relevant. Yes, it's right, it's relevant, but because when you talk about unemployment, I also talk about unemployment. When I talk about inequality in the workspace, I don't even relate because I have never been employed. But when you talk about inequalities in institutions of higher learning, ngaze ngaphuma kusafana. Ngaze ngaphuma ama challenges engawafika ku institution of higher learning esakhona. So I feel like even chancellors of universities must also form part of these gatherings, because they must know that at some point there is a very thick line between basic education and higher education, where when we say that being educated is something that is huge in this country, because qualification, because those requirements are done by departments, by the way. Kobe department didn't qualification, but Mopum High School did 10 or 40 was pass matric, but or 50 university. Those type of things that we should sit down and talk about. I don't want to divert, because none of my colleagues they were radical, but I'm not going there, because when I came to speak, my position is like not my position. You understand? I hope you get me. As a little say, push off figures, bora, but forget about radical, but I'm wearing the shoes of Nana, not the secretary of deal with Zotin as a bed. I did my research about the socio-economic challenges that we face. It's actually very overwhelming to believe that as a country we still talk about these things. Because in 1994, when our parents went and stood in long queues, by now these problems would have solved themselves. By now, unemployment, we will just be talking about minimum wage, those type of things, but not the unemployment. 28 years post-apartheid. uThobani ukuthi this day 46 years ago otsiyethu babehle like guys it's 46 years now we still talk about the same thing they talk about just it is the different context sisakhuluma ngeenkinga ama solutions awakabi khona I'm depressing you guys ngokukhuluma ngeenkinga nami. We have a very unstable economy that leads to a lot of social ills. I think kumgwaqo wangakini la uhlala khona you will witness a lot of divorces. No social ills across the economy. You will witness a lot of absent parents, which leads to a lot of unguided society that is morally bankrupt. So, more figure in the community, and I know in my former community I lived in, Enulands, we only had one male in Mgwaqeni wangasekhaya. Hence, the crime just as since this nine over very umuntu wesilisa uyedwa or header a home. But most homes are headed by mothers. And in those homes that are headed by mothers, it means that that community morally vele ayikho balanced. Makhona ingane that is raped or is touched in that community by another male. It's something that we don't speak about because you know those type of things that now because abantu besilisa in this community only have one man over driver, they don't get enough or sufficient support to channel their brains. This is incorrect. Hence, you'll get, next month is July. July is men's month. You'll get 1 or 2 seminars that speak to men. Come August, every day there's a women's seminar. Every day women are taught how to treat themselves, how to carry themselves. But in July, you'll get 1 or 2. Because it's the moral or the value capacity we have in our country. So our social ills that are driven by our economy, it's our pig because we are people, but it's something that we should be looking into. We also need to agree with school leavers find it hard to be productive under the economy that we have in our country. Uze was-certify uThobani ukuthi u-64% wabantu abakade besey'koleni nowhere abafundi, they are dropouts, we name them. But kade ngibuka i-curriculum ye-IB ne-curriculum ye-CAPS, how it is so different. Going back to saying that abantu efanele ngabe bala in this room are not here. Because we talk about these things, but we ourselves can't assist each other. We need assistance. So school leavers are people that a primary, a basic education vele ngeke zikutshele ukuthi bangaka abantu aba drop out e-primary. Ngeke zikutshele vele ukuthi bangaka abantu aba drop out e-high school because ayinandaba nalabo bantu. But ezokutshela ilona i-stats samaphoyisa ukuthi between the age of 18 and 21, abantu abacommit crime, abantu between 18 and 21. Mawuye emapareni manje uyobheka laphaya. You won't find a 35-year-old para. You will not find a homeless person ongokuzenza ona 35 uhleli lapha emgwaqo. It's us, abantu abalingana nathi. Because in basic education, umuntu ngale ngathi engasafiki esikoleni e-primary abaye kuyombheka ukuyomlanda. Abanandaba nalabo bantu. Because our main task is that sidila naleli dlanzana. Mina iyangicika futhi nalento ukuthi u-IB ama results aphuma kuqala. They are child of a higher God no CAPS. Hence ababephuma kuqala ama results ama e-bases ema university sisheshe egcwaliswe lapha. Not that u-CAPS does not produce good results, but u-IB uthathwa kakhulu because they pay more. People that get access to the IB syllabus are paying fortunes, but people that get access to CAPS, some don't even pay. Angifuna ukuqhamuka nenkinga. Kwangune-solution eyayithi corporate companies should be going ekoleni and teaching people example, or teaching learners as an extra course, how do you start a business and all of that. But it doesn't teach you how do you get the target market of that business. She created, she wrote how about should we have bigger plots to but what if we're a community that doesn't need clothes? We don't have a problem with not having clothes. What if we're a community that doesn't need bread? I made a joke who was pale up and clearly unfortunately, we don't have an experience. So, maybe us being liberated by the people that did not have a good gist of who's liberator was bulala. I thought they were going to speak here and talk about the increase of petrol, but nobody spoke about it, so should I touch on it also? Say to Lagel, you know how they capture us? Usantako was supposed to form part of a strike that was planned last week, but they gave Usantako an idea that, need a strike. If Gibeli tax was 20 rand, Usanja my price. They know that we need the taxis. They know that until we are poor, or whoever that is a car, you have no other alternative because so they know they have a system that if we stop this, we increase this, these people will always find a way to manage to go into those places that we want them to go. It's like, we always conflicted. Our South African charter says 14 until 35, but the UN says 16 until 24. Because by the age of 24, you are stable. Finally, you are stable because you are very productive. You are productive. So we should be paid to think. We should be paid to think. By the age of 24, it's you end university. You are starting your own family. You are sebenza. Needs water, electricity, food, sunako wena. Fanele ngabe usunako. Hayi ukuthi usunako. Fanele ngabe usunako. But UN vele exist in UN. It's not like it exists in our country only. So I think one question we should ask ourselves is that do you really think sizophuma nama solutions lana? Do you really think what we I am hlukanisa umuntu obona ikhala le lecture longalibonanga. I am hlukanisa umuntu ofundayo incwadi longayifundi. I am hlukanisa umuntu oyibuka kakhulu indaba longayibuka indaba. But amsiza ngani? Yes, sizohlala la, have food and go, but in Tambama, the situation you left in your community is going to be the same. Ayikho into ezoshintsha. Ngaze ngimoshe kakhulu sisayike sithi woza nizosijoyina sizoni siza ngale ndlela esisiza ngayo solutions ngibonge.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Let's share in a non-political way. Sanbola, again, I just want to say congratulations and thank you for the speeches that you've made. Chairperson for this past session. We, again, unfortunately, running over time. Again, one thing I wanted to try and challenge each of us, including the speakers, is there's something that's interesting that happens, and I think Uwatu spoke about it a bit when she said, "When Steve have, you guys have everything." This is a mem city, it's a flow and then I beg for them starting one, because psych, for instance, I'm challenging this exposure because psych is very specific. They are the ones who are meant to be bridging that gap. In terms of the youth leagues of the world, I don't like youth leagues. I don't think they have a place in our society. I think they are undermined and it undermines the position of young people. I think that you guys are being used as fodder for the voting stations, but you're not actually being pushed into the right spaces. So I have a problem with youth leagues just in general. Not the one youth league, but all youth leagues. I think we should banish youth leagues. I think that you allow yourselves to be secondary citizens in the space of political contestation, particularly in the space of youth leagues. That's why I don't think we should have youth leagues. I think there's value for having leagues for individuals that are previously disadvantaged as groups, but I don't think youth is a category that qualifies on its own distinction, right? I think that women have a problem. I think that people with disabilities have a problem in terms of their ability to contest spaces, but I don't think that youth should qualify as a category. When you said about young people being or needing to be disaggregated in that way, like 14, we have 25, 25, we have 35, it's important for us to consider that young people exist. We can't be approaching things from a blanket approach. So the general people who youth and youth man, you guys must start your own businesses. Like, that's so sweet as schooling, that's like against some health and regulatory rules when it comes to food provision, guys. Be realistic. When we talk about young people and education, for instance, I don't have access. Now I'm forced to participate in a system of that starts off like as like deceit. Corruption is because I don't have access. So there are multiple things that I don't feel that we're challenging enough in the spaces that we occupy because we want to leverage off of small positions now so that we can eat. So we must also be willing to challenge ourselves, guys. Surely we shouldn't have brought back certain people into actively reaching leadership. Certain people to reach the leadership go over. They've done the work. Thank you guys. Can we move on? Like they end up repeating the same history all of the time. Now we must every time Manchester says when tomorrow we're going to be addressed by people who are 60, 70, talking to us about youth and what we as young people must do. Fuzzy, like genuine. And the thing is, even with the contestation when it comes to this conference that's happening at the end of the year, where do young people feature? Our discussions, like who are you lobbying for and why? What do they do for young people on that basis? For those people who don't belong to youth leagues, in the organizations that you serve in, but what are you doing inside the organization to challenge the hierarchy and the ways in which that organization functions in favor of their people? After the tea, we'll have commissions, but the tea is going to be a 10-minute working tea, right? So what I mean by that is and go specifically into the commission that you're going to be working in. So we're allocating the initial 10 minutes in order for you to be able to just go grab something quickly and go to the commission. So you must channel knowledge as well. So you must eat whilst you are part of the commission. Secondly, we will have an opportunity to engage you directly after the commissions. So there are 3 commissions that are set up. Commission 1 is around socio-economic development, democracy and youth. Participation in the post-pandemic era, that's going to be led by Ms. and she'll be accompanied by she's going to be joined in the commission by Ukuzan Uba for the keynote speaker here, Umolawudi. That's Commission 1. That's happening in this room. And then Commission 2 is going to be happening in the exhibition room, which is where we also have a tea, so we are sort of Commission 2 is policy shifts to support active youth participation in socio-economic development. You know about Africa, also because the Commission Unjabulo will be joined by Utobani. I laugh because you know and then of course Commission 3 is going to be led by Ms. Pamela, who are very capable program director, who will be in that much around advancing youth development through advocacy and lobbying. Ms. Kutlego but the fact guys with the history about it was very good with them. Got us being there and I'm swag as 5 FM as every weekday breakfast show. Is it breakfast? Oh, Saturday, Saturday and Sunday breakfast show. Please support that show. Bandabasha DDP. So let me share that. So the commissions are going to be an hour in length. So what that means is because we're doing a working tea, it's going to be an hour and 10 minutes. It's Katsin Manji. 12:30. So we are now sitting in the song at what's the time? 20 to 2. 20 to 2, so this is Ms. Portia is unfortunately going to be leaving soon, so if you need any information about site from her, please grab it quickly before I happen. That's one thing. So how do we define who's in the commissions as well? In terms of who's in the commissions, there's one text that have color, that are color coded. Okay, yeah, but ababongo basale babenge commission has been so commission 1 and then commission 2 are the people who have the green color coding on their tag. And then the last commission, which allows them to run commission 3. So commission 1 is in this room, commission 2 is in the exhibition/tea area, and then commission 3 is going to be in where you'll have registration. So, for your time. What I want to challenge you again, if you weren't here, okay, think about this when you enter the commissions. Having said the things that you're going to say, would they have been said already had you not been here? What's the value that you bring into the room as a specific individual who has been able to come into the space? We had about 500 participants that wanted to come into the space and be physically present in the room. What are you leaving behind for us to be able to engage with and work with? You traveled all the way from Mgeni, that's Mgeni municipality. If you know, you know. So if you don't know, then you don't know. So it's important that we also remember that. That's the only big thing. Your value. What are you leaving with the people in the room? And I wish you to dominate the conversation. I'm saying, leave us with something that we wouldn't have had you not been in the room. If you walk into spaces like this and other spaces that you're going to be a part of, share something. Otherwise, also allow other people to be part of that space. One of the things that are problematic about young people, and particularly politically minded young people, is that they are very active in youth spaces, when their time is also up. Your time is up. Now, when your time and moment is up, please allow them for other people to be able to be part of that space and grow. Okay. To our remote sites, I know that you guys are going to be holding the spaces for conversations quite significantly. The remote sites are discussing the commissions as follows. Induzuma is going to be talking through Commission 3, Endutuzweni, which is in Lazi, Commission 1, and Commission 2. So each of them will also have an opportunity to give feedback based on what the discussions were. So I also recognize that there are hands that have been raised on Zoom in order to ask questions. We will take your questions after the commissions. That was a very lengthy announcement of what's happening. But enjoy tea and enjoy the commissions. So we're going to 22. Wow!
I think we need to take note of the traditional industries and the trend that's going on at the moment to be able to see how we can enhance what's the agenda. So we need to take note of what happened before, what's happening now. How can we match that into something new?
Okay, so
Something
understanding
that works for us.
understanding first history,
Yes.
so that we can identify ukuthi look push it, because uzobona kanjalo ushintsho vele ungazi ukuthi kusuke kuphi. Okay, so
I think by looking at trends, I will look at money, look at what was happening. So I think it goes in with this one. Before you look at the past trends and then you follow the upcoming.
I think it's different.
So what we're right now.
Identify
Old trends.
yes. You just say traditional, I think that's a better word. Traditional. Identify traditional old. Yeah. Identify traditional trends with those present or current, I don't know.
I think we can just sum it up in our way.
Okay, that's all
For
right.
us to write everything.
Oh, okay, yeah. Any, yes, Mama? No, you can go first, your hand was up first.
I think the question would be to how can young people adapt to the emerging global trends.
Yes, to enhance the youth development agenda.
I think perhaps it's really looking at how infrastructure could be set up to support that, because in as much as all of that can be adapted, but if there's no infrastructure such as internet, which is not so easily accessible to everybody freely, also the use of computers and also skilled personnel to go into the communities on how to equip young people to say these are the way how to set up an online shop. This is how you market your thing. Having accessible centers within locations to say, let's have cameras, you can shoot your stuff, upload, there's computers. So it's mini resource centers then that can become global spaces for them to be able to compete with global trends, because how can we if we don't have the infrastructure?
So
accessibility
to infrastructure.
Infrastructure and the skills.
Yes.
About decentralizing it, because right now it's a big mission to just get data, let alone the computer, and then the skills, because it becomes part of it.
I know. I like that. I like putting the resources, and then now say, okay, soon I access. How to go about using it? How to go about navigating? Because you can have a computer to tell us or start.
It needs to be ongoing.
Yes. Okay, and then yes, you noted accessibility to infrastructure as well as skills and resources. Then ongoing, meaning it's the evolving world. It needs to also be ongoing, maybe in brackets. Okay, noted. Okay, yes, what do?
In the space that I'm in, I feel like most times we have the solutions. We kind of know that we're getting onto social media. But where do we get these resources? When you speak about infrastructure, so some of the institutions that we had identified were people who are in social corporate responsibility. Some of us who are youth are in those departments. Every company wants to be part of social corporate responsibility, meaning that if you're in the banking sector, how are we then addressing the developmental gaps so that we actually benefit youth in terms of youth development? We go and we teach young people about how to save, how to make money, how to monetize. For example, when I was in primary school, I started a business. I was selling. Then I didn't care, because I was selling pancakes, but I didn't care that there was actually an expense at home of me selling those things. Then profit. I thought profit was mine, but I didn't understand that my parents were actually putting the other bill. Then there's another area where we're saying, okay, where are the gaps in youth development? When you're saying skills, some people, for example, in Microsoft can go and say that we are teaching you guys these types of skills so that you know how to do a computer. Because I do believe that we have decentralized youth development outside of centers of development, such as schools. young people are found in schools. So how are we empowering schools to bring those skills? So the focus for me is youth development agenda. That is when we are enhancing the relevant skills to make us money, the relevant skills to sustain our economy. In a way.
Yes, so what I'm getting is that monetize, okay, yes, push.
To channel corporate, to channel CSRs. So channeling corporate social responsibilities to centers of youth development.
Corporate social investment.
CSR.
So channeling CSRs to centers of youth development. For example, schools and youth centers. Then again, we might value it. How do we get these skills? Where do we find these computers? Do we build new buildings?
Yeah. I think again, I'm a school. Now there are so many things that are coming to my mind. You know, because it starts with the education system. I think we all say that education controls everything, and it does. You know, and some of the answers there to our problems are
invite that committee to make presentations to that committee, whether it relates to policy development, legislation, laws. It has the capacity to bring that particular committee to an event such as this, or even to a community event, and make presentations to them. And I think that is one particular avenue that is key and central, because that committee then can make representation through their representatives in the Southern Council of Provinces, and then that gets submitted to the National Assembly as well. So I think it's a straight line of communication, and I think that we must make use of that too.
Okay, I like those points you made. So we spoke about communication, guys, in terms of this streamlined communication is from the individual, right? And we need to firstly acknowledge the disconnect between the policy and what is actually happening. To write it down, we should actually acknowledge that, no. The second? Yes. Okay, so can you just sum up the point? Streamline the communication?
Yeah, so one of the ways in which we can streamline communication is to get civil societies, organizations, faith-based organizations, or even organizations like ratepayers organizations, to bring the petitions committee, which is a portfolio committee in the KZN legislature, and make presentations to them based on existing laws and policies, and make recommendations of changes that we want.
To make recommendations in the legislature and the national
through the petitions committee. Petitions committee.
And quite frankly, I don't know about the petition committee.
In fact, if I may just add, I think KZN is the only province that has actually constituted that committee, even before the National Assembly has.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, number 2, number 3.
I think perhaps also just looking at the key component of monitoring and evaluation, which is lacking, which then adds even policymakers not to be accountable, and even in implementation, because it's not like we don't have policies. We don't have great groundwork. And the challenge then becomes to say, after such a long time, where have we gone wrong? And there's no systems in place. It needs to be individual bodies that are not aligned with government and perhaps civil society.
Okay, so systems in place for accountability, right?
Yes, accountability.
Systems in place to account among government officials and all, or systems.
Or youth agencies.
Yes, agency, yeah.
Systems in place.
No, let's sum up the mind and it's forever.
Systems in place to account. Systems in place to align accountability.
Officials' accounts.
Yeah. Okay, any more points, guys? Any more points? All right. Please acknowledge Lizana for doing so amazing. Thank you so much for the engagement and the questions and the answers and all that. Thank you so much.
From Door to Door Foundation. I'm just going to respond to the first question, and I know someone's going to write down the suggestions or my view. Well, my view on the first question, which is around the proposition here to as young people. Like we've seen just to make an example, a global example, like we've seen in other countries like Russia, it's mandatory to go to, what do you call it, army training when you finish school. Army education is mandatory within elementary school, which is high school or whatever. So for us as well, I think, just to, propel our youth towards being active voters especially. Because I thought about the last voting season that we had in South Africa. The numbers they were dismal. But if we could have something like that, like propose that into the policies for the next coming years, maybe that would make a difference. If the policy says 18 up to 35 or whatever the youth bracket is, it's mandatory to vote, like it or not. On that day, if you are 18 to 35, it's mandatory to vote. Maybe we could see a difference in our voice as the youth. Being as we are the largest population in our country, maybe things like that. That's just a small part, but suggestions like that I think could turn around our future in terms of our
so that we can be able to know that you're ready for us as well. Once that happens, Yanga will then be able to spotlight the different breakaway sessions that you can contribute to the bigger and broader plenary session. But Commission 1, so I'm not going to ask them to report first. I'm going to ask Commission B, rather. About across that seem to have finished first, or at least were able to listen to my instruction. And then ask Jahudo's session to also feedback using but yeah, I don't know who had been appointed in that session to give a report back. And thereafter, session because it looked like they were ready and the audio was very on. And we'll give them an opportunity to engage. I'm a panelist or at least hearing some of the perspectives that are coming through. Session or rather the breakaway session was quite intense. If we can try and keep the presentation to about 5 to 10 minutes at the most in terms of giving feedback, which is great. That's what I designed. Colleagues, testing 1 2. Mina ngizwakala. La. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Colleagues, Emlazi, asinizwa. Your mic is muted. Colleagues, Emlazi, your mic is muted. We laptop. But it's doing great. Guys, what's happening? One mic, please. Mine is on here. One mic? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I was there, nothing was playing. Colleagues, can we try and move on? Right? Let's start. Please, let's watch any that about we can start breakaway session. Who's reporting? Are you reporting on behalf?
No.
Oh, the group isn't it? Just standing it isn't a family party.
Ngiyazwakala. Okay. Igama nguvusumuzo kaBhengu. Ngizobe ngizopresenta izingxoxo ezithathwe ngithola manje ukuthi group 3. Ngazi ukuthi yellow team. Kodwa ke akusenani. Kuma discussions esibe now, they were very fruitful. Quick question, a bit, how can young people adapt to the evolving global trends to enhance the development or the youth development agenda? One main thing as issue was that social media plays a critical role. It plays a very critical role in setting the public discourse. I remember when specifically the Arab Spring of 2011, where it toppled several dictators in the Arab world. Young people used social media to mobilize. They were able to topple governments. So social media is very important for young people to adapt to the evolving global trends and to enhance the development agenda. The fact that we are here, some of us saw this youth Indaba through social media, and we are here today to engage. One other aspect, or one other point we discussed was that we must follow and be part of trends. Some of those trends entail a fourth industrial revolution. We know very well that there are jobs that are going to be displaced by machines. In fact, it is anticipated by the World Economic Forum that over 800 million jobs will be replaced by machines by 2025. But there are more jobs that are going to be created. So we must follow global trends. If, for instance, globally, the global shift says we must take up skills in this ICT industry, we must do that in order to set and enhance the youth development agenda. We must also ensure that there is an accessibility of infrastructure as well as skills and resources, where it goes back to the point that I was saying earlier on. Channeling CSR to centers of youth development. Companies have corporate social investments that they are duty and duly bound by statutes of the country to invest or to invest back into society. We are saying that if those monies are channeled to people that are already engaged in youth development, instead of saying yo Coca-Cola there are already organizations with experience to carry out a youth development agenda, channel that investment towards people who have expertise on that. So that is how we responded to this question. And also a curriculum development, it must be responsive to global trends and global needs of the changing economy and society. The second question was that what is the role of civil society, political parties, governments and private institutions in integrating value reorientation in our youth focused program? Hey, that's a mouthful. But again, what discussants or participants in this commission said was that we must be able to change the way civil society thinks. Civil society, it must be responsive to our current values and our needs. Change the way we think as a civil society. We must re-envision skills that are undermined and make them accessible to young people. For instance, skills in the agriculture. You know, the agricultural sector in South Africa is treated as a periphery industry, yet it is responsible. I think in the last quarter, according to Indaba quarterly survey, said that over 35% of people are employed in the agricultural sector, and that's agro-processing, so the entire value chain in the agricultural industry. So we must be able to see what re-envision the industries that are often undermined. You know, we import over 300,000 goats in Southern Africa. Those goats, by the way, are not taken from farm to farm. So I told her about this people, so every weekend. So it's a huge industry that is often undermined. I think 2 years back, government of KZN signed an agreement with Saudi Arabia ukuthi bazothenga imbuzi lakuthini. I never saw even one goat ngene emkhumbini ihamba iyale. So those are industries that we must look at and re-envision. Angabukeki under my neck. Another point is that the awareness and creation of what is actually happening. We live in a society of perceptions, and the perception now becomes a reality. With media, situally one thing, and in society when something else. In fact, media can be able to drive a certain narrative. Isise la ebafuna siya kodwa ngifuna ukungena kakhulu kulezo zinto ngoba ngizothi sengiyapolitiki. Kwi-point ningixolele amanye ama-point they interlink, so that's why ngizama ukuthi ngiwa group, so I don't read point to point. Size kwi-point ethi how can young people of KZN use the existing fourth industrial revolution as a transformation tool to strengthen local economic development. Leli gama lithi fourth industrial revolution in local recurring, local buy. That's because globally sonke sikhuluma ngale yona. In fact, it has shaped everything esiyaziyo, i-fourth industrial revolution. Kukhona umuntu nje ogcine ekade ecleaner, the next thing isekhona umshini wenza umsebenzi wabantu abawu-5. Awukhathali usebenza 24/7. So it's very important. So how do we ensure that young people benefit from this, and how do we strengthen the local economic development? So we said that universities must be centers of innovation. One point that was raised was that a Silicon Valley that we know in America was as a result of universities being centers of innovation. One university was Stanford University that created a center for innovation and said whoever produces something land will finance law. And people started innovating. Amongst the first companies already developed there was Dell. There's this company. In fact, there are several other companies, but universities were the driving force from a lead like Silicon Valley. We must also encourage young people to monetize their time online. Kuna social media influencers that are getting paid. We don't just browse online. We must teach young people of KZN to find opportunities online. The other day I read with him, there's this lady, Indaba, very beautiful lady, charges 25,000 to post. And I'm thinking, post on Facebook, I should be paid for posting. So if we'll be able to teach young people, and the only thing she does, I think, makeup. Something that our young girls are doing on a daily basis. We must be able to teach them. That's a skill that is very rare now. But in some parts of the country. Those are skills that are often undermined, but they are generating revenue. But the fact that something as simple as makeup can lead to someone making 25,000 per post. Anyways, we said also ICT should be introduced as a compulsory subject in schools. Just as we have introduced the LO. By the way, LO, they introduced it as a response to an eroding moral fiber in society. So we should also be able to introduce another compulsory subject as a response to a global changing environment. Or another important 2 points, decolonizing the language of instruction. In language esetshenziswayo ezikoleni inzima, you find that umuntu understand it, but because ibekwe ngegama elikhulu ngalendlela le igcina angasakwazi uyi-understand. In fact, im-alienate angasafuni ukuparticipate kuyona because igama likhulu. And also getting more women in STEM, kuma field of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. For every 10 graduates in STEM field in South Africa, only 2. And for every 10 males, there's only 2 women. Yet women make up over 50% of the population. So for us to take advantage of these opportunities, we need more women in these fields. Then we can be able to say, yeah, we are taking advantage of the opportunities FYI. The last point, with which channels can we use to advance youth development policy framework towards integrated national youth development initiatives and programs? Hey, the person who was generating this question is very serious. It was very serious. But yeah, we said we need to get civil society to participate in the governance process. I remember in the early 90s, there's a city in Brazil called, I think, Porto Alegre. The Workers' Party, they was elected into governance. And they said, we are doing away with the municipal council. We are going to elect as citizens committees. These citizens committees were the ones who were determining the budget. I think there's one person who said that development must be driven by people who are affected by development. So the city of Alegre, Porto Alegre, did exactly that. And in a space of 10 years, they were able to significantly reduce the salaries of officials. As a result, people were discouraged from seeking employment to Maspal. Instead, but because so if we are to get civil society to participate in the governance process, in fact, participatory governance institutions akhona in South Africa, but aswanakile ward committees. That's where we are supposed to be driving development. So civil society must participate in those participatory governance institutions. Number two, we must put systems in place that ensure officials account. I would say we must put systems in place that discourage people from corruption by reducing the hefty salaries. Kulabantu laba, in fact, kade beyisho umlawudi indaba ama-consultants and all. So those are the things that we can do to ensure that the channels that we can use to advance youth development policy framework. I think igona konke lokho ebesikushilo siwuyelo team. Siyabonga.
Sinikwe ama-questions that are for. If other question is how can young people be involved meaningfully in the social development of SA in the post-COVID era? That was our first question, and our answer to that question was we cannot participate meaningfully COVID has passed. If you don't have income to participate, how can you participate? Since all sorts of salaries, which you can why? Because of and also
Hello? Good. Yeah, okay. Can I need to make the speaker say? See all the speakers. Keep the mic on. We need to speak.
how and that way to work on the meaningful after the accumulated income.
Oh, ungizwa kanjani ngoba kumele nami speakers ensibofa zombili including the computer speaker. So it's feedback inside on this. So if you could usuke la ugcine khona qhubeke nje presentation yakho, but your speaker is on. Both on your laptop as well as the yeah, so kumanje you speak. Hey, bafo. Yabona uyashaya ukuthi sifana, ngicela ukuthi sishayele izandla. Who has poetry? No jokes. For the technical features. So we know the show we work it out on our side as well. Ngizocela ukuthi sizame umpungose ekwabuthe museum sibone ukuthi mhlambe kwabuhle inkinga imkanjani before we sinbala as remote locations, but we're really glad to have had the discussions happen in these multiple locations. What's going on? Are you still around? What's going on? Somewhere. Hello.
I hope sizokwamulela lapho.
Speaker, group 2 is it that the group thing I'm living on kanjabula kuba yona presenter and sitele group ya but college Jabulo, igroup yako if you can make a effect chart. Kalama group sasa ndio stand kuna kunge participate na kwa. Sasa kwa sisi process hizi ndo zaza na kwetu mambo bado kwa hiyo tukuti na kwa ndio ibani. Kwa kuna wale asame ngasikhuluma
ukugibela ingaze ngibe mude kakhulu. The question ekade sinayo noma kade sidingida ngaphansi kwayo was a policy shift to support the active youth participation in socio-economic development in South Africa. Sithembe sihleli ngesicubungula with my team, then sikutholile ukuthi ke in order ukuthi ke sikwazi ukuba ne-active youth participation in socio-economic development. Firstly, we need to activate youth to vote. How do we activate youth to vote? It means we need to amend the policies, make sure that our policies instruct youth to once you become at the age of 18, it's mandatory for you to participate in voting. Why so? It's because youth, we believe the youth of South Africa is the voice of this country. You understand? But the same youth that we believe is the voice of this country is not participating when it comes to elections. You understand? And then they have become the ones the whatever party that won the elections or whatever president that is ruling the country. But when it's time for them to express their voice, they are nowhere to be found. So should we amend the policies to say once you become at the age of 18, it's mandatory for you for your voter, so that you will have that voice and have that opportunity once you want to complain, you complain on something that you've been participating on, not just making a loud noise
on behind of our spring phones, and then without any activism also ends and now as much. We also discussed another thing we need to we don't need to stick with vision A1. But in order for EU to now it was participate in social economic development, we ought by all means necessary, or with spin of what is amended, the same constitution or the same policies, or with EU or whatever franchises, companies, big companies, as of as econ, or with men's garbage figure in the Wednesday, Samalogishi, Emakaya, Zizo sneakers themselves, because those are lies. In company in Pules, the show to get Zotugisa Umpagat, no Mazotugisa in Dow, they are young. But at the same time, they are not allowing the youth of South Africa or the youth of that specific area to participate with economy. I was also developed. So, we're saying is our policies, national youth policies, should be amended and allow with our companies and those procure whatever it takes. Isuke iyoti ngaleso sikhathi isuke ikwazi kube ibe ne-access yabo. How so? Let's say there is uSuperspan or Pick n Pay noma uBoxer ofika elokishini. Understand? Before uBoxer noma uSpar ofika elokishini, we need to make sure ukuthi uBoxer uma ufika uyakwazi uku-identify ukuthi njengamanje umthobisi la. Njengamanje utshala ispinach, but at the same time thina siwuSpar sineshalo of spinach lapha esidinga ukuthenga, but njengamanje thina njengoSpar sizohamba sele ebhangeni sihambe siyozodela sethi spinach sikweso sidayisa la kaMasho. You understand? Umthobisi wakaMasho oneplaza la okwazi ukuthi uzokuyitshalela izipinach zakhe zibe zinhle umphakathi uyazithanda, and then use excludiwe kwi-economic participation yaleyo ndawo. So ulentoza was saying such franchises, they must make sure they first make a research ukuthi ubani uney'nkukhu, ubani unespinach, ubani ukwazi ukwenza ama-product ucleaner, ubani nani, so that umphakathi at least 50% of youth of that area must participate in making sure ukuthi emashelfini alezo y'tolo they are products of that youth in order for them to feel part of the economic, socio-economic development, because now they are being developed economically and you understand? So we also need to revisit the schooling system and find a way of integrate with the FET into schooling system that can contribute to local economy. You understand? So just to cut it short, what is in 20? Oh, I'm sorry. Which method can we use to promote youth-friendly democracy and enhance political education in South Africa? Then we said we need to include youth participation in decision making that will allow them to access the policies and contribute where they can. You understand? By saying that, we are saying youth ayingabe ukuthi njengamanje yabese youth ukuthi we're having this discussion on this base 99 and then come present whatever you present, and then at the end of the day youth must be in the table of amending those policies or on amending those systems on either part and parcel of those decision makings, because at the end of the day these decisions that are made by parliament, they come direct to affect youth of South Africa. But when we ask who took this decision on our behalf, no one is held accountable. But it is the youth of South Africa that is suffering at the end of the day. To move forward, that question was, what needs to shift? What needs to shift in different societies, societal areas, policies, skills development, political education, so that young people can access socio-economic development opportunities for their own growth. We need, as young people, to connect to well-established companies that can equip them with skills and they can use that for a personal growth. Programs, camps within the communities that will sustain political activism, educational participation, and decentralized youth services. By meaning that, at the end of the day, we understand that we will find that there are things that I'm not sure if I will use the right term if get some stakeholders or some organizations. Yeah, let me stick on organizations. Some organizations akhona ukuthi akwazi ukulekelela ulusha in terms of ukuthi ke bathuthuke. It's either politically, it's either mentally, is either physically, or you can name them. But we also understand that at the end of the day, those organizations, they play a vital role to develop umuntu osebe esemusha. How so? We decide as an organization that there will be a camp. I will speak on boys because I'm a man. So I'll speak on behalf of Abafana. You understand? If you utata Abafana to a camp, a camp plays a role to develop umfana to bring a stage of umfana to a stage of indoor. You understand? Because purpose of camp sikwazi ukubonisana ngempilo nani nani. And then that thing normal leso senzo leso uzothi masubuyo uzos implement emphakathini noma whatever knowledge usunayo usuyibuyisela emphakathini ibuya ngendlela esinobudoda phakathi, because at the end of the day there are so many things that are counteracting womanhood, you understand? And then when I say ukwazi ukubuyela kuma camp nani we believe such participation allows even those ama-bootcamp ukuthi anikeze abafana noma amadoda noma whatever society esuke included lapho ukuthi nabo bakwazi ukudevelopa ama-skills nama-opportunity, ama-social economic development opportunities for their growth. Then it's a last question. Let's discuss it with my team. Which impact assessment tools can we use to explore for exciting youth policies and government strategies toward improving lives of the youth? And bite into what the youth wants. That number one. We need to find a way to get youth, understand, in order for them to develop. Whatever that youth to develop, we must make sure that the government means or they must give us as it is. You understand? If it's money that we need to develop our skills, they must give us money. You understand? If it's knowledge, they must give that knowledge as it is, so that we can be able to see feel included. There should be accountability in impact of assessment. Understand? The accountability. You understand? Because at the end of the day, Umtobisi is my colleague. We have Umtobisi there are things as was done on behalf of the youth. And normally, let's say, put a program. Okay, let me speak of this program of this nature. You understand?
Yes, I see that.
Yeah. So now, this program of this nature, because I was so fortunate enough, this is not my first time. Then. You understand? But njengamanje ngithenga ngifika la ngathi mina ngiqhamuka eMUT. which is an institution at Ulush. Whatever knowledge that I'm having right now, I must make sure that it's spread around the population as ABT. You understand? So, but the question is, must have spread with a social DDP? Who's time? Who are you, Chief? You understand? And then, in line of accountability, is Yanashel, you understand? Because now I was there by virtue, you understand? But because I didn't get accountability, as they say, but so as a promoter, at the end of the day, on whatever basis there must be accountability, whatever doings as so that youth can never feel excluded from participations in socio-economic development, you understand, in whatsoever nature. So those were submission of my team, because they were in a personal perspective. For the fact that it means
disclaimer. So all views expressed here are of the individual, not of the organization. Of course, we want now to go to the last group. Again, I want to send my apologies to both sides, the technical committees for Adungisa. When it comes to political summits on the board, it's a value of element invitation. Come out as a political summit as a people to support it. It's actually serving we have a civic education conference. If you're interested in that, please sit at the last. But kuning sinomqeda kunyaka sekubheka sesikwenzile sabonakala nathi ngizamkhulu isikhathi khona ithimba baningana abareportayo great participation yonke teamwork phakathi kwasho izandla ithimba lakho thokozani.
Greetings to young people and program director. Program director, indeed, as this group were a decolonized and inclusive group, as you can see, there's a balance of gender and decentralization of power.
Yeah.
As group one, we had 4 questions, and we, amongst ourselves, divided ourselves into 4, led by the chairperson. The first question that I'm going to address is the question that says, what is the political program of young people in the current democratic dispensation? We then discussed and we have said, before we have a program, every program should have an end goal. What is it that we seek to achieve? And we said, as young people, our generational mission or our end goal is economic freedom in our lifetime, intertwined with free, quality, well-resourced and well-decolonized education. So for us to be able to achieve our generational mission, which is economic freedom, we should challenge and contest the political space, the business space, and the civil society space as young people, to be involved and to be included in the strategic sectors, not just be involved as ex officios, not to be involved as the PAs of the executive, but want to be executives ourselves. We're capable most. So when we speak about economic freedom, we speak about land. So the land question remains central on every time. You will pardon our group, we are led by Chairperson Martinez, though there are some issues, but again, we are led by Martinez, and yet we've been very brutal on this, that The land question, land is economy. You can't speak, you can't do anything without land. So for us to be able to participate in the economy, not just any economy, mainstream economy, we need to have land. We need to go and challenge the issue of land. You had colleagues before here, or the latter speakers were speaking about the producers of spinach. You can't produce spinach without having land. You can't, land is everything. Hence, there's another Thomas in the house that always say land or debt. But again, as young people, we need to contest space, we need to contest strategic sectors of the economy, we need to be included. Also, for us to attain that economic freedom in our lifetime, we need to mobilize and organize young people outside of political formations. But we need to mobilize them behind the banner of our generational mission. We need to be able to say, we need to be able to have sessions like this, where you would find the people of different political organizations, different civil society movements, speaking in one language about the upliftment of a young person. As young people, that is what we should do. Because politics, at a certain extent, do divide us and do derail the generational mission. So as young people, we should be able to organize ourselves through civil society movements, which we should be able to constitutize. You should be able to constitutize the communities, the students, and all other young people. Also, I wish to further emphasize that we shall never compromise about free, quality, well-resourced, and well-economized education. I thank you.
Thank you, God. Injury justice. Justice.
Okay, so igama lami ngu-Ayanda Seminari. We were given a question too. Uti, how can young people be involved meaningfully in the socio-economic development of South Africa in the post-COVID era? One of the things that we thought about was we need to identify the gaps and then align ourselves with the needs of our community economically. We also need to understand the importance of the local economy, like for instance, mina ngikhule ekhaya kune-baker, kunama-tuition amaningi, kune-salon, kune-shoemaker, valiwe konke lokho. Because we didn't understand the importance of the local economy. So siyakwazi ukuhamba sigibele semhlaba siye esalon, kodwa ibikhona ngasekhaya yaze yavalwa. We need to reimagine the spirit of Ubuntu and nation building and a sense of patriotism. Like ngikwazi nami ukuthi umnembeza wami ngithinte, ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi umuntu okhule naye sikwazi ukusebenzisana naye. Lento yokuthi siqabanga bale individual ayisebenzi, fanele sikwazi ukuthi sisebenzisana. We need to promote the psychosocial well-being of umuntu, because there are a lot of things that affect us psychologically. We've been speaking about how rate of suicide yanyuka zonke lezo zinto. So if umuntu elimele ngomoya nasengqondweni akakwazi ukuthi afide kahle, akakwazi ukuthi asebenze kahle, fanele sifide ingqondo zethu ngendlela right. And then we also need to build local networks, which goes back to the importance of the local economy. Like for instance, mengazi ukuthi okay mina ngiyapheka, omunye mhlambe wenza ideko, omunye uyathunga. Singahlangana sikwazi ukukhetha umshado yonke into. Abanye baqokisa imakoti, abanye benza konke. So we need to build a local network. Ngiyabonga.
we are going toward the end of COVID now. Thanks. Greetings. Igama nguSiphamandla wakakhona. Mine is to respond to question number 3. The question was what participation channels can be implemented to promote youth civic and political engagement. First and foremost, we need to agree that there is no development without the touch of education, no schools in our society. So to respond to that question that was imposed to us as a commission, we said that there must be a political engagement without being attached to the certain t-shirt of the organization. Because in our society now, we have identified politics attaching to a certain organization, but not remembering that politics is what speaks to governance. When we speak about politics, we speak about governance, we not speak about political organization as a standard organization. Number 2, there must be a formation of youth structures, because we have identified and agreed that indeed in our communities we have youthful organization. We have your youth interactive action, you have your SA youth organizations that are there in society. But when you drill into their main goals, you found that the vision is the same, but they are contesting the same space. So we need to cooperate together as young people, sit together in one table and form an organization or a structure that will be focusing in a certain main cause. We divide ourselves to certain main cause that affect young people. Be an organization that will speak direct to employment, be have an organization or a structure that will speak direct to education, and have a new structural organization that will speak direct to how we can engage in community transformation proceedings. Number 2, youth involvement in community meetings. We must agree that as young people we keep saying that we're not given a space in our society. Number 3, establishment of youth skills center, development center. As I said that development touch, when we speak about development, we touch based on education. We shall not anyhow be in a position to say that education and skill development are vast. They need to be interlinked, because we must agree that we have these development skill centers in our communities. But the reality of the matter is that they are not youth-friendly enough in order to capitalize our skills as young people. When you go to these youth schools development, you find that they are more dominated by elders. Young people are not there. So in order for us to be able to cover that fears of social and economic development, we must have these youthful skill centers that to speak to our needs, interning them with the youth empowerment, and also expose the career guardians in our schools, and also the youth involvement in war rooms. Because most of these decisions, policy making decisions that are taking place, in particular when you speak in the essence of municipality level, they start in the war rooms, they go to zonal war rooms, and they reach the level of municipalities. If us as young people were not part of war rooms, then our ideas and projections towards the social development of our country would not be implemented, but elders will keep on indulging and taking over the space, because us as young people were not in the sense of everything. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, please. So I want to share the for everyone.
What approach do we need to prioritize building a socially and economically inclusive society in which people are active champions of their own development, supported by an enabling environment? So in our discussion, we felt we needed to take or apply a more agile approach. If COVID has shown us anything, it's that and if you start thinking with an agile mindset, you understand that izinto ziyashintsha. So you tend to sort of be a person that does embrace change. Akusizi ukuthi sihlezi negative thoughts, embrace change as it is. COVID coming into play did open up is definitely e-commerce, you know what I mean? So if you can tap into things like ICT, we also said that it's important to have face-to-face conversations, but in those face-to-face conversations, we're very good at that as civil society. I'm not representing anyone also. In these face-to-face conversations that we're having, let's understand so it's very disheartening to go to a place and the majority of people are of a school of thoughts ST, and then a certain group is of a school of thoughts it's like, are you even practicing democracy in your own room, Manjila? You know, there's a bit of butting heads in terms of other definitions. We also spoke about collaboration because you're honestly, we're going to be moving forward. Yeah, I need this table who comes from that school in order for that table to give us the correct insights that we need. We also spoke about Indaba, your funding and all of that. It's like, it seems as if civil society, there's some kind of a misalignment. No, why is an oil company funding an environmental company? So we need to understand that. And we also need to look at frameworks that exist currently, whether it's National Development Plan, whether it's the Sustainable Development Goals, whether it is Agenda 2063, whether it's Agenda 2063. You know, because we can open 50,000 grassroots organizations, but if a mission, a vision, organization is not in alignment with these developmental frameworks, where do we think we're going? You know? So I think
Organizational goals are made up of 50,000. I know some of you are directors of multiple companies, CIPC and okay, the about 10. Pakistan and enterprise. Class again, and that's DDP. Kodwa uma kuphuma ngaphansi kwenu ngempela ukuthi nifisa ukuthi abantu abasha bakwazi ukulekeleleka ngaphandle kokuthi mhlawumbe bafike ngokwinhlangano ethize noma babe care about young people in general. That's something we must also be willing to commit to. I want to also pass my apologies once again to our colleagues in the remote sites. Next time, because I know you would wanted to hear what young people in those different spaces are engaged with and are engaging on. I'd like to hand over now to the program director who will convene our panel for some final remarks. I'm going to 2 minutes each. Yeah, I'm a temper. About this one, because speakers and then of course we'll hand over after program director I think Tobek, I was thinking later. And then, no, not Tobek, okay, then system cutting Tobek assemble. So send you a tola, and then by emails, and then we'll do the final vote of thanks, and then we'll share with the Rama and the one and plan what's happening. So we're going to it.
That's really from Mr. Plongo. Through facilitation. I think we can give him a value. He's really good at what he does. And please, for really being here with us for this party. I know what we spend in our daily schedules, but let's attend and engage as abantu abasha. So let's see Shayli Shobe. Halala. Mtomusha halala. Phambili Mtomusha phambili. I-Africa. Mayibuye. Amazing. So njengamanje socela nje our guest speakers ukuthi beze ngaphambili bezosho manje the final remarks. It's just going to be 5 minutes, 5 minutes each, just for them to respond with 2 minutes each, just for them to respond with really what has been engaged on and talked about, and deliberated about. So ukuthi nje bezosho amazogcina sazi ukuthi nathi masemakhaya sambe nokudla okuthize sohamba nakho nanokuthi ngoba lokho ngishumayela ukuthi we are already agents of change. It's just for us to implement and initiate those changes. Ngicela nje beze ngaphambili uMr Mulawudi, uMrs Kuhle Bonke, and uMr Thobani beze ngaphambili. Ngicela sibashele kukhulu beze ngaphambili.
Colleagues and comrades will sing. I don't know about others. Oh, I told the student, but I know student. I think I'm not going to repeat anything that you have said. Though our problems may have individual manifestations, but all of them are collective in nature and have got one source. Now, in all our actions that we take, may we realize that, may we organize ourselves in such a way that we do not spend all our energies dealing with individual problems when the problems that we face have a collective source. Yeah. That's one. The last thing I'm going to say is a question I asked my colleagues at the say now, Ali, is that if our leaders and those who lead society today in all different spheres have a belief that all the services and goods Mlawudi they provide to us are good and of a perfect standard, why is it that most of them don't use the very same services that they give to us? What stops them from going to the very same clinics and hospitals that they give to us if they are so good? The last one is, we cannot champion anything together if we are not united. But that unity that we speak about is not a unity for the sake of unity, but it's a unity that is principled, that is focused on unity, on particular ideas and particular actions that we take together. We cannot do anything if we are not organized. Now, being organized does not mean that we have got a taxi and we've got a venue and whatnot. Being organized also means having the ability to assess and know what are the problems you face and what is the response of those who create the problems for you. The problem of a mobilized force is that njalo uma ipusha, because we are mobilized from outside and not from within, ama benefits or challenges that come from that push as was, and if nama benefits are ways because we're not organized. Being organized for us Mavosana with me. When we say the state is not good, and the state must be led by in a particular way, when that change happens, we even know who's going to lead that state. We choose for ourselves. The problem is in America, when young black people were pushing for a vote and for them to be represented, is that the Democrats in particular acceded to the demand. But what they did, they went around black people and then they looked with, oh, so this anti-Tom, this position. So if we are not organized, we cannot even control how the benefits of our struggle are going to be shared and divided, and who could take the responsibility for it. Yabong.
I think I've got this mic. Which one should I use? Any. I don't know. Okay.
So I'll try and be as brief as possible. We've identified a lot of the challenges, but I do believe that not everyone knows where to from here. For the longest time, we've been gathering in halls, we've identified the problems, and sometimes we struggle to identify, is this a short-term plan, a long-term plan? Was this one dealing with me or my community? My task right now is to encourage you to take even one thing today and go and implement. Practically speaking, I'm a development practitioner. I could have spoken about a master's in housing, sitting in class and the things that I've learned, but the reality of the matter is that people are suffering out there. People's lives are attached to if you're going to wake up and implement a program. So if we are going to keep speaking in these rooms about things that we already know, the reality is that someone was saying things that I know. I learned about it in a textbook, and now in Washington, I saw it on Facebook, wherever it was. So in this room, we have people who understand the challenges. Yes, we're sharing. I encourage us to leave now, having known what Vusi does, for example. They go under DDP to go and teach E4IR to kids where they build websites. We've been speaking about how to utilize social media, but the truth is that you don't even know how to build your own website. They do the DDP. Please ambush him. That's what I'm all about. When we leave here, we need to know where to from here. How to create a network. One person said that they are a specialist. Oh yes, they were now commission. You said they're a specialist in marketing people. They help you. He helps you market your business and get more clients. So if you have a business and you don't know what to do, speak to people like that. Where to from here as young people? I've identified that somehow we keep going around in circles. We exist in land. Land is emotional. Land is economic. Land is spiritual. But that's the one thing that we are still struggling to identify, that when you speak about housing, when you speak about school, when you speak about resources, when you speak about business, it all happens on land that we do not own. And this is why every time we are fighting for spaces, we are fighting for community centers, not understanding how to access those systems. And so moving on, our commission is speaking about advocacy. Advocacy happens at an individual level, an organizational level, and an institutional level. On some areas, please understand that as who I do, I am a participant, I'm not leading. So let us not try and be experts in everything because we are closing space for those who are experts in that area. Just because you are politically active in Al-Qaeda and you are good at articulating, it does not mean that you will be the implementation agent. It means that the money won't come to you. Unfortunately, you don't know how to implement. Your ideas are not sufficient enough to implement. And that's why you use software in websites. I can probably YouTube it, but the reality is that people are studying it. Let us start respecting people for the things that they do have. There are young people who have been doing it for their whole life. Let us empower those who have the skills and stop being selfish as developmental practitioners and try and occupy each and every space. Says one? Ngoba uzoyitshela ngathi special noma wena unenkampani nelogo enkulu kanti someone else can do it better than you. So for me, closing remarks. We've all been a part of a movement before. We've all done great things, but humility has been our biggest struggle as young people. To understand when we need help and where we need help. Where am I not leadership? Allow high schoolers to teach you what it means to be a 2000. You're not a 2000. Okay? Our time is running up. Tina's bad dad, the 2000s, and they'll tell you what that generation needs. Yes, we are giving them the baiting and information, and they'll reject certain things. When you want to know how to use social media effectively, go ask 2000s. So it means that you can actually hire a high schooler, I've been given 2 minutes. Closing remarks. Let us implement. Yes, we can discuss. There are spaces to discuss. But if we leave here and not know how to implement, we wasted time. If you don't know where to go from here, we can speak to our DDP, you can speak to our Watu or Tobani. These are implementation agents. Kono Tisha, she's an educator. She will tell you when you come to my school, this is the procedure. You can't say you want to disrupt my learning hours. How do you implement an after-school program? Do you get me? People, we know where young people are. But let us know how to infiltrate those spaces without disrupting what is existing. Because it's about revolutionary and it's irrelevant and not pragmatic. Funda ukuthi system injani ukuze ukwazi ukuthi iguqula kanjani ukuze futhi ukwazi ukukhuluma ilanguage yakho ungafiki usubhombada abantu ufike ezikoleni ufike emakhaya kodwa ukwazi ukwazi icathulo zakho ulula lana. When we are implementing, let us be practical, relevant and humble. Ilokho kuphela engingakusho. Siyabonga.
Yeah, thanks. Mine is very simple. I think the two comrades have covered extensively the most important things. I just want to leave you with a few questions, which we may answer anytime. If there is a collision of two cars happening in Wamashu, and someone from Australia is in charge of the interpretation of why it occurred and what are the implications, let's imagine how or what that will mean. So there's a reality in Wamashu, but the domain of interpretation is the prerogative of someone who is far, far, far away from the scene. Imagine the implications of that. Lastly, people always ask me, so you write and critique capitalism and anti-black racism and patriarchy and all those things. The question is, what are you going to do when we have power? It's a very good question. Here, our struggle should be the assumption of power. We must take power and decide our lives in terms of policy making and state level. Otherwise, we will have this, like what we say in Tobana, this sharp analysis, but fools are going to continue to be in charge and decide our lives. So the struggle for true liberation is the struggle to assume power. And power is very important in the sense that when, during COVID, you use power to discipline capital, just like in China. In China, they tell you, the Chinese Communist Party tells you that we have got national development. You cross the line, we chop you. Here in South Africa, private capital does it as it wishes. A practical example, during COVID, garlic, which were said, ginger, and all those things. There was an increase in prices and the state was hands off. The price of tomato, the price of cooking oil, the state is hands off. So when we assume power, you use power to discipline capital on behalf of people. That is the importance of power. Otherwise, power becomes something useless, and that is key in perpetuating unequal power relations. Knowledge and power. The example I gave is that we must take charge of the interpretation of our realities. When I'm talking about the collision in Wamashu and someone in Australia interpreting it. So we must be in charge of interpreting our reality so that when we say we went to bed hungry, someone does not come and say, no, actually you're not hungry. You were perhaps fasting. You get a point? So knowledge and power is very important in determining and shaping our lives. And that is very important. Lastly, people don't care how much you learn until they know how much you care. Thank you very
much. DDP, I think you should extend the hours of youth Indaba. I'm not ready to go home. See, the program officer, we need to deliberate on this. It needs to be overnight or over 2 days. I'm speakers waiting long. Amazing. I don't want to even reiterate anything they said because
Siyabonga kakhulu. Thank you so much to DDP. Bathike basazoyibongela bona kahle. Mina nje thank you so much for ukuba nami sonke isikhathi sakhuluma kamnandi saphisana kahle. Thank you so much for having me. Halala umuntu omusha halala. Halala. Phambili umuntu omusha phambili. Phambili. Siyabonga sicela nje manje ukhabazela uMrs Mkhize ukuthi eze ngaphambili nje esozenzela i-vote of thanks nama announcements. Asimshayile ihlombe bakithi phokolo. Colleagues, siyabonga kakhulu. Asimshayile ihlombe wonke program director. Sixolisa kakhulu firstly colleagues abakhona ku Zoom, our remote areas. Sibe nama technical glitches siyaxolisa colleagues. We hope kwelandela i-conference kuzokwenzeka kangcono kodwa seyideclare coordinator wayo ukuthi hayi yonke into izobe iqonde ethwini. Colleagues, on behalf of the DDP team, sicela ukubonga kakhulu our co-donor uKes abasilekelele ukucover le venue. We'd like to give thanks to the NYDA abasilekelele kakhulu kuma remote sites ethu bakwazi ukuthi bakhave i-lunch for 300 delegates. Basibashayela izandla. We really appreciate you colleagues. There's a limitation near 100 in this venue, and we received over 350 RSVPs. So we had to be innovative on how we work this thing out, and we apologized. We apologize for kubantu abakuma remote areas. Ngiyazi ukuthi our colleagues, they feel as if mhlambe abala they were more important than them. Kanti akunjalo. And unfortunately, siyithembe encane kakhulu ka DDP. And we depend kumanye ama stakeholders with us assist. Hence we are here today. So colleagues, siyaxolisa kakhulu, and we hope kuzokwenzeka kangcono namanye ama funding opportunities they're gonna come. So uma siyi-hosta, mhlambe at a bigger venue, Youth Indaba for next year. We'd like to give thanks to eThekwini Youth Office, abakwazi ukuthi basikhavele itiye, i-Mayor's Office. Sashayela izandla. These colleagues nabo sebarashile as the NYDA ukuthi basikhavele itiye, so bakwazile ukuthi basikhavele. Siyabonga kakhulu to our colleagues. We'd like to give thanks to ngifisa ukusho lo colleagues, our facilitator, our program director, because we did have funding. They volunteered. That's social izandla. Siyabonga kakhulu colleagues ukuthi nikwazi ukusilekelela. Siyazi ukuthi uma sipreacher as abantu abasha sipreach indaba ukuthi you must pay for umsebenzi wenu, but unfortunately isimo besingazivumeli, kodwa siyabonga kakhulu ukuthembeka kwenu ukuthi nikwazi ukuthi nis-offerishele ama-services without pay. We'd like to thank our documenter Zumbalo Hleliwe and the team from the Adams SOS, nabo futhi njengama-colleagues ethu, program directors, the facilitators, uThobeka, led by uThobeka Kubisi. They volunteered again. Can we give them a round of applause? These are our colleagues abas-assista kakhulu ukudocumenta. Colleagues, ngicela ukusho lokho ukuthi ngoba we are a civil society organization, we depend kunina colleagues, because we have colleagues here from different political parties, colleagues from different municipalities, ukuthi nizosilekelela ukuthi izinto eziphuma la nikwazi ukuthi niyisebenzise ukusiza abantu abasha emphakathini yenu ehlukahlukene noku-implementa, ngoba thina siwu-DDP singazama ngendlela yethu ukuyikhipha information, but on the ground akukho okutheni singakwenza. So we depend on you colleagues ukuthi nisilekelele kakhulu kuleyo. All remote areas facilitators nabo ngiyafisa ukusho lokho, umsizi Khumalo eyibambe Mlazi, uMelusi Mahlabe eyibambe Ntuzuma, mase kuba uZimpungose, uNkosikhona uthanda ukubizwa ngose no general. So ngifisa ukusho ngazo ukuthi sizoxabana abangaphuma la ukuthi angibizanga ngendlela afisa ukubizwa ngayo.
Especially Izandla siyabonga kakhulu. Nabo they volunteered to facilitate our sessions at my remote areas. We'd like to thank our speakers, Umlawudi Buhlelo Gotobani, no Portia in her absentia. Portia, she's rushing to the youth parliament, Ebandrela Pimtuba, so she couldn't stay for the duration of the program. We'd like to thank the following municipalities, Abasuka Gude, who's joined namhlanje. Ngiyawubona eThekwini, ngiyabonga kakhulu ama colleagues from different departments within eThekwini. Umhlwathi municipality ovele wathi uzokhipha amakhansela alidayo as abantu abasha. Currently siphuma kuma local government elections, especially that. Ukuthi bakwazi ukusuka kude kangaka bazosijoyina la. Impendle municipality siyabonga uMkhambathini municipality, Umgeni municipality led by MUGF, which is a youth-led organization ekhona lapha eMgeni colleagues. Sibonga kakhulu. Ngifisa futhi ukubonga our exhibitors ngekusabala esengiwabalile. We'd like to thank our colleagues from SITA, the Turkey Wash SA, Mr. Sanitation, IEC, CMT Travel, Sunday Cake and Severies. Colleagues, lama businesses abekhona lapha, they are youth-led organizations or businesses. Aphethe abantu abasha. Asiwavalelanga abanye ngaphandle, but i-system esisebenzisile yokuthi sibheke kuma-RSVPs ukuthi obaba khona, and then we could only select from RSVPs. Asibavalelanga abanye ngaphandle ngenxa yokuthi besisaba ukuthi sizothi uma siyigibela ngaphandle sizovinjelwa ngaphandle sishawe. Sibonga kakhulu-ke from various institutions, sibonile DDP, MUT, TA, UKZN, siyabonga kakhulu. Would like to thank our delegates from various political parties, because these are young people, and uma ngabe siya kuma provincial and national elections sinesifiso sokuthi abantu abasha esibabonayo abalidayo manje nakhona koSANCO kungabe iSANCO youth colleagues kodwa kuba ama colleagues ethu esibabona iSANCO kungasayi iSANCO youth elida khona. So colleagues siyabonga kakhulu from different political parties akhona ngengisabala ngenxa yesikhathi ukuthi babe khona la. We'd like to thank the DDP team, the migration team yaka DDP. Please support our project, migration team. Bakhona nje lapha ngamuva bazoxoxela kwilunch ukuthi yini abayenzayo and how can you be part of that project and support their initiatives abawenzayo emphakathini ehlukahlukene khona la eThekwini. Colleagues, ngicela nonke nishayele izandla. Ngenxa yesikhathi siqale late, but sikwazile ukuthi sibekezelele. And by the way, i-youth Indaba kahle kahle iwa 2 days. But nathi siba over ambitious. Ngenxa ye-COVID sabambezeleka kwagcina sekuphoqa ukuthi siyenze usuku olulodwa. Kodwa-ke ngenxa ye-ambition nokuthanda into yabantu abasha siyayiforce ukuthi sibe usuku olulodwa. But we are hoping to our sponsors ukuthi from next year izoqhubeka kulo 2 days. Sabonga kakhulu colleagues. I-lunch izoba on the 2nd floor Ocean Breeze. Ukuthanda uphethe amathikithi lapha ngemuva ngoba kungena ngamathikithi ku-lunch venue. So ngicela ukuthi uma siphuma sithathe ithikithi ongakatholi on the 2nd floor. You can follow us on our social media platforms at DDP Democracy, www.ddp.org.za. Yes, go on our social media platforms. Our colleagues usihamba ngasasho ukuthi uzongishaya. Siyabonga.
Colleagues, just sort of quickly, left, when you walk out, there are booklets from 7th grade. You can take them all mahala. There's democracy and view, and it's your vote mahala. If you feel want to take a bigger fact or constituency, there are documents that have been forwarded or sent to you, but it was not valid. Those are documents that we use for our report as well. Please also fill them in. Sandiwe. Documents now okay, cool. Also please leave them on the table, we'll collect them from there.